Next presenter is are the Friends of Grand River, which includes Mr. Learning, Mr. James Learning.
That's what I'm supposed to do?
Exactly right, sir.
Thank you. You know, 14 or 15 years ago, I had a cancer diagnosis. It numbed me from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, as those of you who had the same would know. It's not nearly as terrified as I feel right now. Then was not nearly as terrified as I feel right now. That said, I'm representing the Friends of Grand River, not to be confused with the be careful. Not to be confused with the Ms. Benefield's, who are they?
The Grand River Keeper.
Grand River Keeper.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just be comfortable there. Yeah.
They are an international group. We're a local group. So that's it. What I'm going to do here, obviously, is, and this is good, I'm going to repeat pretty much what everybody else has said, though I wrote this weeks ago and ran it by my group. With all due respect to the panel members, this process is a sham. Friends of Grand River, Mississippi are convinced the outcome of this process is a foregone conclusion in your minds. The project is slated to proceed no matter what. The deficit incurred will be legislated to be held by taxpayers of the island and the territory of Labrador. Nalcor will continue to do business no matter what form of deficit it takes. The Lower Churchill will be a repeat of the Upper. Again, no disrespect to the panel, but sitting in your place should be a panel of experts and scientists who have the ability to deal with the facts. I'm not diminishing you. I'm sure you're wonderful people and you do your job really well, but I think the time has come to give a lot more scientific credence to our environment. We just can't keep turning tree lots into parking lots. That must be slowing down, I hope. How can anything less be expected? Judged in a scientific manner the outcome of this destruction, labeled construction, and how can there be any objectivity when the government is both judge and jury, and most important of all, how can you mitigate the death of a river system? The answer is, of course, you can't. It makes no difference that Labradorians will see no direct energy from this project. It makes no difference the 7th largest river in Canada will be killed, along with the 8 major tributaries flowing into it. It makes no difference the downstream plume of methyl mercury will flow the length of Lake Melville and out into the Labrador Sea and onto the Hamilton spawning grounds. It makes no difference people harvesting fish and seals of this system will have to deal with mercury toxicity for generations to come. It makes no difference. The mercury accumulation is twofold from the upstream of the original project and now added to the downstream accumulation. Mercury accumulates in human tissue. Nalcor will advise us of the toxic levels of the toxins levels in the fish flesh. Will Nalcor advise each individual eating these toxic fish just how much mercury is in our flesh, brains, and nervous system? It is a cumulative neurotoxin. Will you set up or establish any kind of a clinic that can give us these answers? Can I get an answer to that before I go on?
Would you like to finish your presentation and then come back, and then at the end maybe you get an answer that could pose a question? Would that work for you?
Sure, that's fine. Thank you. The Newfoundland government is determined to be in the energy export business, let alone it has no such powers on the island, and I'm separating the two. Never mind the upper project was a complete fiasco for the proponent, let alone no compensation for trap grounds and property that was lost or flooded. to the users of that area, let alone that mercury levels are at the health risk levels as such a result of flooding Lake Michikamau. Never mind, Quebec is not likely to ever allow the Newfoundland government overland access through Quebec territory for southern markets. I have to take that one back because I know now that has changed at some level. Mr. Bennett certainly gives thumbs down to attitudes towards alternatives. According to him, alternatives are not consistent or reliable. This may not be an exact quote, nevertheless, it is what I heard. Every home deserves to be heated, and this is what I heard, every home deserves to be heated by good, reliable, consistent source of electricity. Well, what about Labrador homes? Are Labradorians expected to heat their homes on diesel generator prices? Not likely. If you look on a map, you will see most Labrador communities from north to south have adjacent rivers, from which alternative run-of-the-river systems can be developed without river-killing dams. Winds and natural gas could be used as backup power needs. All of this without unsightly transmission towers and poisoning rivers. Labradorians are not responsible for North American extravagant electrical wants. The Grand River, Mississippi, as it runs today, is an industry of tourism potential waiting to be developed. Change this to an electric toxic dead zone, and that is what it will be in perpetuity. While we are on the topic of electric rivers, we have here a copy of Future River Development in Labrador. What we see in these publications are the remaining rivers of southern Labrador being slated for damming: the Eagle, the Paradise, the Alex, the Hawks, the Pinware. It is no accident that the route transmission link proposed, running north and south, all that has to be done is cut right angles from each of these rivers to bring them into this transmission line. So that might partially explain why there's no room for Labrador Community Powers. I don't know. Remember as well, there are considerable tracts of boreal forest in each of these river valleys which will be inundated, thus rising the levels of mercury further into the South Sea, Labrador, and beyond. How much hell do we want to accept from these people poisoning this system, this portion of our planet? There's a reckoning coming regarding proper, objective, and sane approaches to the environment. The question for Labradorians is, can we hold off the insane wanton destruction of Labrador river systems by a desperate offshore colonial government until this sanity takes hold? The Friends of Grand River, Mississippi will not give in to these trade-offs, and we will do the utmost to stop this insanity labeled industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. James Learning, for your presentation on behalf of the Friends of Grand River, and I understand that what you said, the difference in the organization. I will ask my colleagues if they have any questions for you. Okay. And if not, I'll ask Mr. Bennett if he has a question, and also if he'd like to. I understand your concern was related to methyl mercury in humans, and how you would know about it and what could be done. And if you would like to respond on that, I think that would help Mr. Learning.
Well, thanks for that. I think there are two aspects we talked about when Dr. Knopper was with us yesterday. And one is establishing baseline, and we said that we needed to do that in various communities. And then the second question is confirming predictions. So we will have ongoing monitoring in fish, in seals, and then we need to also look at levels in people as well to understand there's not an issue. So will we have an ongoing monitoring program? Yes, we will.
How would that be set up?
Those are details that we'll need to work out in consultation with various groups and communities, but generally the approach that's used is to test human mercury levels by taking a hair sample and then evaluating the levels in hair.
I don't think I meant I think the clinics physically, how would they be set up from community to community? Because this will be a community problem, and already our hospitals are overburdened with just day-to-day things. We all know there are waiting lists. When I go there, I have to wait. Like everybody else, we all have to wait. So add this yet again to our process. And could you not make this expedient by putting up proper clinics, because this is going to be an ongoing problem. Neurotoxicity will be in our fetus, like future generations. We will never be leaders because we'll be mentally crippled because of this. And this is just one river. Add the other 5 I just mentioned, and the Labrador Sea is pretty much inundated with methyl mercury. So if you're creating the problem, you must have the solution.
I mean, our intent, first of all, is not to create the problem, but the
That is so beyond
well,
your ability. Just given the project.
Mr. Learning, you have to, when you speak, you have to push on the little button, otherwise we can't hear you. But before you do it, like the question has to do with methyl mercury and the kind of facilities and the impact on the facilities that the kind of testing might require. I think that's the nature of the question.
Yes, sir, it is.
and my understanding of this, and we can confirm this with our experts, my understanding is that this does not have to be done in a clinical environment. This is relatively straightforward. All we need is a hair sample.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Learning, and thank you, Mr. Bennett. You had no other...
No, I had no other questions.
Okay. I have now Miss Jennifer Elson. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lethbridge. Mr. Lethbridge, yeah, you had a question, or
Is this on? Okay.
when you start speaking, it'll come on.
All right. Yeah. You need to ask the audience if they want to ask questions. I think you just probably forgot that time.
Did you have a question for Mr. James Learning?
I have a question for Mr. Bennett, the guy over there.
So normally,
But it includes the panel.
Yeah, normally the questions are for the presenter, but sure, it's a community meeting.
Okay.
Pose your question, and we'll see what happens from there.
I guess my question is this green project that Dunderdale is promoting. If it's green and enviro-friendly, why are you proposing to test people for mercury levels and test fish and test seals? Obviously, then, even the proponent must admit that there will be mercury put into the food chain.
I think the proponent can answer that question. They have before. You can, yeah.
Absolutely. We've acknowledged that methyl mercury is an issue. It's a known issue with hydro developments. We also know that any form of energy production, whether it be wind or fossil fuel generation, including coal, oil, and natural gas, all have their environmental issues. And on a spectrum of energy alternatives, from renewable to fossil fuel generation, we see this project as better than, by far, the vast majority of alternatives. When you look at the attributes of this project, whether it's its cost, its environmental footprint, its reliability or firmness in the market, it comes out on from a balanced perspective on the positive end of the spectrum, and that's why we refer to it, and government has referred to it the way that they have.
Does the wind projects, do they produce methyl mercury?
No, they don't. Wind projects have their own issues. Some of the environmental issues that get raised are interactions with birds and bird strikes. From an operational perspective, wind is not as flexible as other forms of generation. It's not firm because the wind is intermittent, and therefore it creates its own operational and technical issues as far as that alternative is concerned. From Nalcor's perspective, wind in the future will be a complementary generation source in tandem with hydro, and we can see a role for it in the future. But it does have limitations that hydro projects don't have.
I don't believe you.
Mr. Lethbridge, then...
No, the man just lied to me.
Anyway, Mr. Lethbridge, then you can always disagree with a thing. I just wanted to explain to you that the process we're in, I mean, said the proponent made a presentation this morning for half an hour or so, and we were questioning them for another hour or so, and a lot of people weren't here. So I'm trying to allow certain questions of the proponent, and the proponent is cooperating to a certain extent. But the purpose of this afternoon is to have the presentations from the community and to have questions of the presenters, and not to have a series of questions to the proponent. So I did offer some leeway there, and you've asked a couple of questions. If you have one more question to the proponent, that would be fine. But if you tell somebody you don't believe them, I mean, that's not really being respectful.
Damning my heritage, destroying my river without my permission and my consultation is also disrespectful to me. And I don't believe a word that the province or Nalcor says on this issue.